iPadOS 27 was announced last week with a bunch of new features coming later this fall. And you probably guessed it by now, but Siri is the centerpiece behind a lot of what's new. So let's just start with Siri and touch on everything else that's worth checking out in iPadOS 27. So under the hood, this is the same Siri that's showing up across iOS and macOS, powered by Apple Intelligence and built on really like four main principles. And each one lands a little bit differently on each device. So the first is personal context. Siri can reach into your own stuff and pull things back just by asking. On the iPad, that means, let's say you're pulling up the note that you scribbled in a meeting last week, or you want to find and reference some photos that you might want to look at from a trip a couple of years ago. You can have it all be surfaced without digging through folders or your photos. The second is world knowledge. So Siri can now reference current information online to answer open-ended questions. So if you're reading an article in Safari like I am here and I want to know maybe more about the deals on the Apple Watch Ultra, by the way, not sponsored or anything, this is the first article that I saw, I can ask questions pertaining to what's on my screen and it's able to pull it up. And then you can just keep doing follow-up questions if you need to. The third is taking action inside of applications. So Siri can do things inside of messages, music, reminders, etc., based on what you're in the middle of. So here I'm watching Shrinking. Now, when you screen record, you can't see any of the actual content, but trust me, there's a song playing in this episode. I asked it to Shazam the song, basically, and then add that song to my Apple Music library or playlist, and it's able to do so. And then the fourth is on-screen awareness. Siri understands what's actually on your display, so if you have an email open with a date and place in it, you can just say to make an event out of it, and it works from what it's already looking at. There's also a dedicated Siri app that syncs your conversations across your devices, so you can ask something on an iPhone or Mac and pick it up on the iPad and vice versa. And yeah, you can see a deep breakdown of everything that you asked within that conversation, and I like to go back and reference it if I need to, or maybe quickly ask something and it pulls up all the information and then I can just go ahead and check when I have more time. So that's Siri AI. If you want to see it kind of broken down in each section for like iOS, so how it is on your iPhone or your Mac, I made a couple of videos. You can check those out. The caveat is that it's the same thing, pretty much across all devices, which it works really, really well. Before we get into the rest of this video, I just want to take a quick break to talk about a setup that I've been using a lot lately for my iPad. And that's EIP's new 2026 lineup. You might have heard of them before, but this year everything feels way more refined, and it all centers around their app, which basically lets you customize your entire workflow. But let's start with the HyperKeys keyboard. The biggest highlight is how deeply it integrates with the EIP app. You can assign custom shortcuts for apps like GoodNotes, Notability, Procreate, and even system-level functions in iPadOS. So instead of tapping menus all the time, you can switch tools instantly. Pen, eraser, highlighter, or trigger things like search, screenshots, or Siri directly from the keyboard. The trackpad is another strong point. It's a full-surface click-anywhere trackpad, not one of those budget ones that only register clicks at the bottom. It feels much closer to a premium laptop experience. There's also a really practical design upgrade. It's got a magnetic buckle with a built-in pen sleeve, and this keeps the keyboard closed when you carry it around and make sure that your stylus doesn't fall off, something not even Apple's Magic Keyboard does. Then there's the Pencil X, which feels a lot more customizable than any typical stylus. Through the EIP app, you can adjust the tip signal strength, which helps eliminate line skipping and optimizes performance for different iPad models or screen protectors. You can also customize single tap and double tap actions on the tail button, as well as the tail light color and sleep timer in the EIP app. Not to mention, you get tilt sensing and palm rejection too. And finally, if you need it, there's the Nano 2 Paper Feel Screen Protector. It's reusable, washable, and detachable. And there are two versions available. Both come with an anti-glare finish. And if you choose the anti-blue light version, you also get blue light filtering that blocks up to 97%. Overall, this setup is really for people who actually use their iPad for work, notes, creative stuff, just on a daily basis. And if that sounds like you, definitely check out the link down below. Shout out to EIP for sponsoring today's video. Visual Intelligence on iPad lets you ask Siri about basically anything on your screen. So you take a screenshot and then you can either tap the thing that you're curious about with your finger or you circle it with the Apple Pencil. So the pencil is kind of the new interaction here. Also the fact that Visual Intelligence is on the iPad, that's new. But you can use your Apple Pencil if you got it in your hand instead of just using your finger to circle it. And you can get all of the information, like nutritional information, if you're looking at a picture of something food related, or if you want to circle some kind of landscape and figure out where that's at, you can do so. The Notes integration is the other feature that feels pretty good on an iPad specifically, since I use this to write up a lot of scripts. So Siri can now take action on your notes, whether they're typed or even handwritten with the Apple Pencil. I have a script here written from an older video on the iPhone 17e, I believe, and I can have it summarized and inserted into the bottom of my note. Maybe I want to use that for the YouTube description. Or for me, what's even more useful is I can have a 60-second version of the script added to the bottom of my note so that I can reference it for maybe a social media cut later on. Apple Intelligence is also working its way deeper into some of the apps that you already use. So Photos gets the same spatial reframing tool and the extend tool and cleanup tool. So spatial reframing lets you recompose a shot after you've taken it. The extend tool is kind of to help widen the photos. As you can see here, I wanted to get a more horizontal version of this photo and have more of the left and right aspects be recreated. It does a really good job of imagining what that rest of the, imagery would be here. And there's a stronger cleanup tool that lets you pull larger objects out of the scene. The Passwords app can now flag weak or compromised logins and have them updated for you automatically. And Safari can also automatically group tabs together so that you can remove the headache that is having way too many tabs open at one time. Things are just grouped down to make it easier to find. Shortcuts is also worth calling out here because there's some pretty good options available specifically for the iPad. So the one I wanted to try here is in plain language. I basically described that when I attach my iPad to the Magic Keyboard, or any keyboard for that matter, I want it to go into the windowed apps mode, kind of make it more of like a computer, which is what I like to use it for. And then when I take it off of the keyboard, I want it to go back into more of an iPad situation where the apps are more full screen. And so it was able to create a shortcut for me so that whenever I took it off, it automatically went to full screen apps. And when I docked it back on the keyboard, it went ahead and made it windowed apps, which is really nice. There's a substantial child safety section for pretty much all of the devices. And it makes a lot of sense on the iPad because kids use the iPads a lot. And so in Setup Assistant, parents can pick exactly which system apps a child can use, from a small handful to a recommended set. There's a new Ask to Browse that makes kids request permission, not just for applications, but now for browsing specific websites. And the requests all show up in the messages for a parent to look at and approve or decline. And then communication safety expands to step in before a child sees not only nudity, but now gore or violent images that are sent to them. And there are new time allowances that you can set by category, like games, social, and entertainment, with Apple offering age-based guidance built with child development experts. And you can even fine-tune who the child can FaceTime, call, or message, which is really nice. So my son is starting to ask to message some of his friends, and I can limit exactly who he is messaging, and no other messages or calls or FaceTimes can come in besides those specific people. On the performance side, Apple is claiming for a lot of these devices, not just the iPad, but pretty much iPhones and Macs of all, to just be a lot more efficient and perform better. And so with the iPad, external drives are up to 5 times faster, which matters if you're moving big files off the device for photo or video work. App launches, AirDrop, and just general responsiveness are all said to be quicker. There's a whole word wall here. You can pause it and read everything that's going to be changed. But yeah, there's a lot of nice improvements here. And appearance improvements also happen with Liquid Glass. Gets a little tuner. Apple says readability is better with more uniform refraction and improved contrast. App icons are sharper, and you can use that slider to adjust the Liquid Glass. You can go from ultra clear to fully tinted if you want to. And a few smaller things to round it out. There is a captioning feature that generates sync subtitles for any video, and it can even translate them. So here I'm watching a YouTube video. The moment my volume goes all the way down, the subtitles kick in. The moment the volume comes up, the subtitles turn off. Really like that. The Maps flyover feature gets sharper with visual intelligence rendering details down to individual trees. And the Home app gets smarter with AI summaries of your security footage and support for 4K HomeKit secure video. So that is iPadOS 27. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, what you think of this new update. And of course, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more hands-on videos with all of the new betas. This has been with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.